Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Rabbinic Cynic. Welcome back. I'm back from I was in a torture chamber at the dentist yesterday, and so pleasant. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do is go to the dentist. With that said, this is probably TMI for everybody. Please like and subscribe. Don't forget, if you've got any questions for me, I know I sound like a little bit of a broken record. Feel free to email me at the bottom at rabbibentley@gmail.com, and I would be happy to answer any of your questions privately if you want to ask them publicly. If you've got something you want to talk about and you want to maybe come on the show even, send me a little PM, send me a private message, and we can talk about it. If you've, I'm trying to bring up some provocative topics here, so if that's something you feel strongly and passionately about, and we can have a little conversation. I always love having conversations with people. It's my thing. I really enjoy it. So today we are going to talk about, I'm going to bring some of my words of Torah in. We're going to talk about these ideas of creation, redemption, and revelation. Not necessarily in that order, but in Judaism they have very different connotations as they do, that maybe they do in other religions. There's a very specific idea of that in Judaism, and I'm kind of going through, for the next few months, maybe even longer. Rabbi Sachs, again, is one of my teachers, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs. So I'm going to start with him. And then I'm going to bring in some other Jewish thinkers as well. Rabbi Zalman would be a good one, Buber. I mean, all of the different, across the gamut of Jewish philosophy. Einstein, Dylan, right? We have all these great Jewish thinkers, but as I call myself the Rabbinic Cynic, and part of what I do is I want to bring Judaism to the masses, so to speak, or just kind of explain some of the misconceptions, and also just give you something to think about during the day. So, what does it mean? Creation? What is creation, redemption, revelation, and how are these ideals? Or how can you put them actually into practice, right? They seem like abstract ideas. How can you use them to create more meaning in your life, to create meaning throughout the day, to help you find purpose? So I'll start with the idea of creation. What does creation mean? Now, it's not this idea, so you think creationism, it's against Darwinism, doesn't really believe in science. That's not the case in Judaism. Creation means something else. What does it mean? I went on my walk this morning, and I went a little later, and I was glad I did, because as I was walking east, and I was walking west, and the sun was coming up, and I looked at it was beautiful, red colors in the sky, beautiful sunrises. We have beautiful sunrise, sunsets in the desert, even though it's so freaking hot here. And I was looking at that, and I was thinking to myself, you can see something beyond us. You could see the beauty. You can converse with God. We can converse with the universe with these beautiful sunrises, right? You realize that, we're such a minute speck in terms of time and space and history, right? But at the same time, for this brief moments that we're here on this planet, we can see the beauty of a sunrise. Or Rabbi Sachs described standing on Mount Scopus, looking out into the Judean desert, south into the Judean desert, where the Dead Sea is, and if anyone's experienced the sunrise in Jerusalem, it's beautiful. You see the glistening off of the Jerusalem stone of the buildings, and it's just it's a very spiritual, just a very powerful experience, especially considering the history and the different religions and everyone the different religions that hold Jerusalem is so important, and the impact it's played on politics. But not just that, but when you look at that kind of beauty, but you can also find it here in the Coachella Valley, or If you live somewhere, you see a beautiful lake, you see the trees that we have in this. This will bring me to my next topic of the environment, which we'll talk about afterwards, which is a very important passion of mine. And so that idea of creation, that's a very personal, to have that personal relationship with God, to have that personal relationship with the energy that binds us, with the force, whatever you want to call it, right? Again, I said, we don't want to bring in those labels that have different connotations for different people, right? The beauty of the science even behind it, the beauty of the science that makes the sun rise every day, the idea of gravity. Einstein there's a beautiful letter, I shared it on Facebook, that Einstein wrote to his daughter, and he told her to open it a certain number of years after his death. And in there, he talked about this, this other, if he took E equals mc squared and instead of the energy with power, and he replaced it with love, he said love can be found in gravity and love can be found in power. And he said he wishes he could have harnessed that type of energy instead of the EMC, which created obviously the technology for, and this was his regret of letting out that genie out of the bottle. But at the same time, Einstein was saying God is love. Like this is a scientist, one of the greatest scientists of the 20th century and possibly in going through history. And he recognizes that power of love, the love that you feel when you see the sunrise, the sunsets, anything that inspires your passions. It can be the beautiful snowflakes falling, individuality of each snowflake. And then we get to the next one, which is Revelation. What does Revelation mean? So, there's the book of Revelations, which is a Christian book in the New Testament. Jews, we do not read that book, and it's about, what's going to happen at the end of days and in Christian belief. But Revelation is not something, we don't see Revelation the same way in Judaism. Revelation is when people get together and, for example, when I learn Torah or I study anything, studying, Maimonides talks about that, you should not just study the words of Torah, but you should also study the words of the Bible, but you should also study science and understand the workings of the world, of how DNA works, of what makes the human mind tick, the human body tick, what makes a piece of art beautiful. That is all revelation, right? Revelation is about personal growth. And if you're a person of faith, so that is, when you're learning Torah and you're looking through the lens of history, through the lens of the commentators who have been teaching since the time of Moses, but certainly what we have written down in record, which is we have the oral law and the written law. These are two that come together. There's an ever-evolving understanding of our spirituality, an ever-evolving understanding of the principles of humanism, the principles of recognizing the divine essence, the light that exists within all human beings, and we get that through the study and the understanding of of life's meaning through the different through education, through the sciences, through the arts. These are all things that come together that make us partners, make us the human spirit of inquisitiveness. That is beyond something. That is something that has taken us from animals. That as we evolved from animals, that took us into something where we are creative beings, and we can be creative for good. As Einstein said, E equals mc squared can be used for good, or it can be used for evil, can be used for destruction. And so through the studying it with the right type of mentality, we truly can make a difference in the world. And that's a very powerful concept, this idea that revelation is something we do every day when we expand our horizons, when we expand our mind through study. And again, this concept in Torah is that when we study, there's a little parable. So when one person studies, so that there's this idea that there's this relationship that's happening with the divine, with God. But when you study with a group of people, then we say that the Shekhinah, the feminine version of the divine essence, rests in that room and is there, and we are engaged in that sense with infinity. When you listen to a beautiful piece of music, you wonder how Beethoven came up with what he came out of. Maybe he came up from use the Buddhist idea of suffering, that he suffered greatly, and out of that came great music. But music is something which is so it's something that cannot be the feeling that you get from it cannot be expressed necessarily with words. You can try, but is it truly the intention of are we really understanding the intention of the artist, or are we bringing ourselves into that interpretation? Same with art, right? They do have specific ideas of what makes art, right? The idea of depth and color and how that works, and how different colors work to create a certain scene, and how the scene is framed, right? But does that really tell you what the artist is thinking? Maybe it does to a certain extent. It tells you whether it's good or not, or doesn't it? But in that sense, that is the study of that. Maybe it's a study of yourself, of understanding yourself, the revelation that you achieve when you look at that piece of art and it says something to you, and it talks to you. It may have a complete, I'm a songwriter, and I write a song, and I've had people listen to my songs and say, well, you're talking about da 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 da. I'm not really. That's not what I was talking about at all. But if that's how that person perceived that song, then great. That's the idea. Once it's finished, it's out there. It's a revelation for you to experience in yourself. Then we get to the third idea of redemption. So what is redemption, right? So we think of redemption as, far off some type of messianic age where we're all going to be redeemed, everything's going to be gold, we're going to be in this utopian society, depending on what your beliefs are. Could it be, for me, it might be living in the Star Trek universe, there's, we don't have to worry about money, everybody does what they're good at. If I want to buy a new lens, I don't have to buy it, it's just going to be handed to me because maybe I'm good at photography. Or if I want to get a new guitar, I can make it in a replicator, so we don't need any money. Isn't that wonderful? That's a great society, right? We think that might be what redemption means. But I think that's a wishful thinking idea of redemption, right? Utopia, again, we know that utopia means nowhere, right? Achieving utopia is not achievable. That type of redemption is not necessarily achievable. Same with the Jewish idea of the Messiah, right? There's this fervent belief. It's one of the Maimonidean 13 principles of faith, the belief that one day the Messiah will come. But what does that mean? We don't know. That type of redemption, Geula, the word redemption, the redemption of Egypt, right? That already happened. But there's a redemption that happens every day. And we are capable of redemption ourselves. Redemption from mistakes that we've made in life. And we can do that by thinking about the thing. So let's start with the selfish, right? The personal level. And we can think about the mistakes that we've made and how do we make up for the mistakes that we've made. The way maybe we have treated our children or our loved ones or strangers badly. Road raging. Road raging is not a good thing. I was standing in line at the grocery at the pharmacy yesterday, and it usually is a long line at my pharmacy, but my pharmacist is great. Actually, a very wise person, because the person in front of me was there, and there was someone sitting there, and she was being a little kind of, one of those people that there's a long line and they're just talking and talking and talking, not even about their medication anymore. So in this case, so the pharmacist comes out and he says hello to her. He knows her. It's a small town, and she goes, "I just hate standing in line." And the pharmacist said, "Hate is a very, very powerful word. Be careful how you use that really powerful word, right? We all hate standing in lines. So hate is a very powerful word." So I looked at him and I said, "Love is also a very powerful word." He laughed. It's true, right? There's a redemption there in not getting angry, not seeing the hates, right? And I'm just talking to myself. I have the horn in my car does not work, because I have used it so many times in road rage, Now it was my car punished me. My mother would say God punished me, but my car punished me. Or the wearing out of my horn, taught me a lesson about redemption, about having road rage. You've got to be more mellow when you're on the street. It's also dangerous. Don't road rage, right? Any of you in law enforcement know me out there. I don't really road rage anymore. I'm all good, okay? And thank you for your service. But really, there's another level of redemption, not just understanding your own mistakes. That other level of redemption comes in the form of helping others, of looking, like giving things away that you don't need anymore, or giving things to people who've lost their homes, or working for the betterment of society. That's another form of redemption. And that's something that we can do every day. We find something every day that tries to make it a better world. So those are the three elements of redemption that I think are really important. Those three kind of spiritual things that we can kind of exercise in our lives every day. And if we try to set a little time every day to do that, I think we can find a lot of ways for self-improvement. And then now I'm going to move on, right? In terms of trying to make this a better world. It was interesting. I want to do a mea culpa here. When I was ripping on the idea of electric cars, for example, right? So we all know that the Inflation Reduction Act was recently signed, and it created a new way of approaching this urgent need to do something about the climate, which is really urgent. I was complaining it didn't go far enough, and I think it's a very powerful idea. We are experiencing, right? I mean, the science is right there. I don't know how anyone can deny it. I don't know how anyone can deny climate change is existing, and the arguments that the deniers use is ridiculous. But the economics behind it is real, right? The economic impact behind policy is real. And it used to be that carbon offset taxes was like the typical economical idea of how to deal with climate change. But what does that really do? Makes gas prices really expensive. People that can't afford to buy an expensive electric vehicle, they're just going to be paying higher prices on their. It's going to cost them more to get to work. It's going to cost us more to buy things, especially people with lower incomes. So those taxes are not helping people really. So the economic idea behind carbon offset taxes is kind of, may not have been the best way of dealing with climate change, and all it did was really polarize the issue. So in the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a very different concept there that's been put down in there, and that is tax breaks, right? Tax breaks for renewable energy, and that creates jobs, and that creates rather than the stick, how about the carrot? And I think in my criticism of that the act didn't go far enough, I think that's a very important new step and I know a lot of economists are arguing over this, and so economists working with climate scientists are having this conversation. How are we going? This is an urgent issue that we have to deal with. Otherwise, there's not going to be a planet left. There's not going to be life. Is it's going to get a lot worse for a lot of people. And it's going to happen to the poor people first, and it already is. But it's going to affect everybody. So maybe the rich people are starting to wake up a little bit to that. Incentivize electric cars. Whether or not they have their own issues. I talked about the fracking and the lithium batteries and the electric batteries, but as a friend of mine said, it's a move in the right direction still. Right, we need we have a finite supply of this, right? So moving into electric vehicles may be a new way maybe the next step to working through cold fusion or efficient batteries or efficient ways of making solar power, so that we can ultimately use the sun and not have to worry about it, right? That's closer and closer to that Star Trek utopian universe, and so these are all connected, right? This is science, this is public policy, this is our own spirituality that is connected to how we observe the earth. And I'm going to talk about at a later time. I really want to discuss the way we view nature, the Jewish view of nature, something I'm going to talk about next week. But for now, I'm going to set that aside. But think about that: is the earth a sentient being? Is life? Is there sentience in the universe beyond just the sentience that we seem to think is only human? Obviously not, right? There's obviously more. Yes, there is more sentience. So with that, I'm going to leave you on I'm a big sci-fi fan. I'm wearing my Rogue One T-shirt today. If anyone wonder what the T-shirt is, but I'm not going to talk about Rogue One. I decided, right? There's all this controversy about the last Doctor Who. Right? If anyone's a big Doctor Who fan, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. I'm not going to go into it like my friend, the rabbi from another planet, does. But it's something in me wanted to, as we're approaching the anniversary and then these new Doctor Who shows are coming out, I really wanted to kind of watch Doctor Who, not from the, I didn't want to go back to the 60s. I remember those from my childhood. Tom Baker was my favorite Doctor growing up. If you have a favorite Doctor, put it in the comments. Let me know who your favorite Doctor is. As I said, my daughter and Tommy, mine's David Tennant. But I went back to the Christopher Eccleston, the very, very first episode of the reboots, right? From 2005, and it was like, they didn't have the budget yet, it was cheesy, and it was... But if you read this, I put the subtitles on because, background noise, and we really want to know what's going on. And if you read the subtitles, because my English isn't so good, in case you hadn't noticed, but the script was very powerful. It was a very powerful way of understanding, there's this time traveler. So it's such a romantic ideal, right? That we humans, we're such specks in the billion-year lifespan of our sun, right? It's billions of years. And the second episode goes, he takes Rose, the character, and he takes her to the end of the earth. And she's very disturbed by this, right? There's this last human standing there, and she's paper thin, and she's a horrible human, but she's horrible, right? The last of humanity is this horrible rich person who is paying, has lived for 1,000 years through plastic surgery, right? We could take that, it's obviously, it's obviously a metaphor. Some people need plastic surgery, so I'm not criticizing if that's what you choose to do. But this was an extremist version of that, and she was a horrible person, and Rose was very disturbed that they were just coming out here for fun to see the Earth exploding, right? The Earth had become a national treasure, but this idea that we are just specks in the length of history, right? So that's the power, I think, of. That's why Doctor Who is so popular. Why people love Doctor Who so much. Maybe people feel very passionately about who their favorite Doctor is. But the idea that someone that has lived through all these histories, that witnesses history, right? The idea that you can go back and forth. He ends up at the end of the earth, and she's so upset to see that end. Oh, my mom's dead, right? And then comes back, and he said something I thought was very powerful. He said, the Doctor said, when he brings her back to 21st century London, he said he was like, it's not all about concrete cars and skyscrapers, right? It's you come back, it's still there. It's not all about that. And that's the beauty of Doctor Who, is finding the common thread of humanity in these stories. And science fiction that's why I love science fiction so much, is it inspires that. So I'm kind of skipping through some of these episodes again, so I've seen them all. But I love watching Doctor Who. And that this idea of time travel, it just really inspires us to think about, learn from history and think about the future. What does the future look like? How can we imagine a future? How can we apply human nature to that future? So with that, I'm still going to do my Star Trek or the Birkat HaKohanim, right? Which we do with two hands. I wish you all a long life. I wish you to live long and prosper. And hope I'll see you guys tomorrow for my Erev Shabbat, my Friday. Thank God it's Friday special. So long, and have a wonderful Thursday.